What is up, everybody? Welcome into Highmark Stadium. I'm sitting here live with Ryan Talbot. He's wearing a wonderfully colored polo shirt. I feel like everybody walking around the sidelines today could point out where Ryan Talbot was because it was like the little indicator on a map, right? Like you stood out and
A
did
human highlighter.
a human highlighter. Perfectly said. This is the Shout Buffalo Bills football podcast brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets. And right now, Ryan, it is burger season, right? Like anytime you're in the mood, you can go back, fire up the grill, cook some burgers, and head over to topsmarkets.com/burgers now. And it's the world of burgers. With over 30 ready-to-grill burgers, Tops is the place to pick out the juiciest, most delicious burgers in town. From beef and turkey to chicken and veggie, you'll find something for everyone. Taste the flavors of the world with unique toppings and twists on the classic burger. Top's world of burgers is yours to explore.
That's right. You get there. You can't beat Tops meat.
Yeah. Dang, bro. Like it's the first minute of the show. Can you relax a second? Anyway, we got a lot to get to, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We have been very busy this evening talking with all of our Shout Buffalo Bills text insiders. You can sign up to become an insider by texting 716-528-6727 and get all the inside scoop before we even go live on the podcast. What's nice about the conversations too that we have on the platform is that we can bring what people are talking about, into the show and base things around. And I wanted to start tonight with something that it just kind of hit me as it happened that, one of the things that I think has hurt this offense, specifically last season, was missed opportunities in terms of dropped, poorly run routes, mistakes in the route running situation. And one popped up today, and I'm going to take you through it a little bit, and then I want to get into what I think it potentially means. So it was a really nice play by Dawson Knox where he got to the second level, made a really nice move. But one of the problems that I think has kind of plagued him since he came into the league is that when you have your back to the football and the quarterback and you have to make a sudden move to your right or left and why do you keep smiling at me like that?
I don't know.
You're on Dream Street or something. And you have to make a sudden decision and go left or right and then reestablish your balance once you make that move. And how many times have we seen over the years Dawson Knox just kind of like fall victim to maybe like the turf monster, right? We saw it in plain sight today. There is a huge play to be made there between Josh Allen and Dawson Knox. Tyrell Dodson and DeMar Hamlin were the closest in coverage. They had no chance at a play. It's Dawson Knox makes a catch, maybe has a chance to go up the sideline and deliver, what we saw in that Cincinnati game his rookie year when he was truck sticking people down the sideline. But you can't do that if you don't make that catch. And that's one thing. We've talked a lot about the bright spots during training camp. That this to me is one of the storylines I'm going to be tracking that could turn into a problem for this team. Drops last year were a problem for Gabe Davis. I am predicting that that's not going to be the case in this upcoming season. But if it is, Dawson Knox doesn't improve that part of his game, I think he could be a huge weapon in this offense. But if you're not developing in that area, I think it's just a concern. And it's one I want to point out.
And that's a fair concern because of how long he's been in the system, how long he's been in this offense, and the fact that we're still seeing this, something that we've seen for a few years now. And it's funny, you mentioned Gabe Davis, and drops are going to be an issue, and he had a drop early in practice today.
Yes.
Right across the middle of the field, bounces off of his hands, falls to the turf innocently enough. But we've been talking about how strong he has been during training camp, catching the ball. And maybe it was just the first night at Highmark Stadium, the crowd, the atmosphere, the jitters, whatever the case may be. But we're seeing players that have been doing the opposite of what we've been seeing from them at camp. Get called for. They had some refs on the field tonight. I thought that in addition to the pre-snap penalties, I saw in the comments here about Kyle Allen, some botched snaps. So there were a lot of little hiccups tonight from this offense. And in general, it was one of the sloppier practices that we've seen at Highmark Stadium for the return of the blue and red.
Like, we're seeing some comments here. We got to kind of adapt on the fly here. We don't usually do it in this room. So I wonder if the Wi-Fi is not traveling over to this room. The usual rooms that we do it in are locked. So hopefully we are back and back now. Boom. That's huge news. We're going to get into Dalton Kincaid. We're going to get into some other topics as well, but I want to get into the middle linebacker situation today because, I think you talked a little bit about in the text group about your one of your big takeaways today was a really good day for Tyrel Dotson. As we kind of look into the notebook here, it was Tyrel Dotson that was coming out at that starting middle linebacker spot, and I thought he probably had the best day. And it's it's interesting because we've now officially moved past the Balin Spector part of the program, and it seems like this is a competition between Terrell Bernard and Tyrel Dotson. I thought Dotson outplayed him today. Matt Milano, a little note here, thanks to Pops Mafia on Matt Milano and Taron Johnson, were not participating. Vet rest days, nothing to get too concerned about. You're going to see that over the course of practices where they give some of the more veteran guys a chance to kind of, just ease things up on the body. Dorian Williams, though, got to start at outside linebacker with the ones today. I thought it was Tyrell, which we'll talk about that in a second. Dotson had the best day. He's battling up against Bernard, who I thought in moments had a tough day. And then you have Balin Spector, who, it's strange. It's like you can only take so much from these second team reps, third team reps. But man, I'm left every single practice with a play or two where Balin Spector just pops for me, where I'm just like, man, I don't know if it's the way that he plays, that he seems like he's just quicker than the other two. His pursuit angles to me are more crisp and clear to the ball carrier, especially in the run game. But for whatever reason, I don't know if the Bills have seen something where they've kind of moved in a different direction. And, I do think they have to narrow this down. I think the longer you keep three guys in the mix, it's less reps for the guys that you feel like are establishing themselves. But I just don't know if Balin Spector has done enough to warrant removing him from it.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Matt, is when he did draw the start with the ones at training camp, I thought he played very well. I thought he made a lot of really good plays for this team and was kind of anticipating that we would see him again in this rotation, and that has not been the case. Dotson drawing the start tonight makes me think that he is in line perhaps or the favorite to win that job, in my opinion. I think when you're starting at the stadium here, you're building some solid practices up. That puts you in the driver's seat. And real quick on Dotson, he was all over the field tonight. I felt like wherever there was a play to be made, he was there. He was in the middle of it. He had a lot of stops, especially in run defense. So I think that tonight's performance bodes well for his chances of winning that job.
Yeah, and I think that we're also reaching a situation with Dotson where maybe he doesn't play a lot in the preseason, because I think they know what they have in him. I know he's battling, but I think Sean McDermott even mentioned the fact that like getting Bernard and Spector reps is something that's a bit of a priority when he talked to the media a couple of days ago. And so I think we could get to a spot where everything we've seen from Tyrel Dotson is the same stuff that we saw when he played. Like, there's some limitations to his game. I don't know if he's as rangy and quick in short spaces as maybe Bernard has the chance to be. And definitely that I think that's the strength of Spector's game. But I also think he's a much more physical player than both. No, I should say he's more physical than Spector, but definitely more physical than Bernard.
And there's something to be said, too, about knowledge of the playbook, knowledge of the system, confidence in having the green dot on your helmet, calling the plays. He's been in the system for a long time, Matt, and that's something else that probably works in his favor. So there's a lot of little things. And, we had a lot of questions in the subtext today about this linebacker competition and how they're worried that all three of them holding up in the role that Tremaine Edmunds once had. And, none of these guys have that size, have that wingspan. That's not very common among linebackers, but I think all of them have their own strengths. When it comes to Dotson, the knowledge of this system is another part that kind of works in his favor.
So Patrick Cleary with the super chat, thank you for supporting the program, says thanks to subtext he has not been looking at Twitter all day. He says his soul is intact. Keep it up, boys. And Twitter can become a really a cesspool. Like sometimes X. Well, I'm not calling it that. But thank you for the subtext, Patrick. The thing that I've learned about the subtext group, the Shout Insider Text group that we're calling it, is that it allows us to keep my part of my vision for our vision for this is it allows us to keep people in the loop directly with us, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that can kind of get a bit funky on social media as people are sharing it, and who's sharing it. If we're sharing it, it's always coming from reporting around this team in the building. And I think, like I texted it out about Spencer Brown today. Like we got to be careful with some of these injuries, like the Ed Oliver thing today. He looked banged up a little bit after one play, went into the medical tent, came out, seemed like he was all smiles. He was signing after practice, but didn't re-enter, right? Like we could tweet that out. I didn't, and I made that decision. I could tweet that out, and then everybody's going to be freaking out about Ed Oliver, and you're just like, oh, what's going on? And then we show up on Sunday, and there he is in first team defense, and he's taking reps. So we will get an update on Ed Oliver on Sunday, because if he's not playing, if he's not practicing, then we'll go up to the Bills and get an update, and we will report on that. The Spencer Brown thing that happened was a fine observation from Joe Marino. No shade thrown towards him. But it ends up being basically nothing as he's out here a full practice today. And I thought a solid practice for Spencer Brown.
Yeah, a really solid practice after having one practice earlier this week where he had some ups and downs. I thought he looked well on the field, and he came running out of the field, out of the tunnel tonight. So that was the first indicator that he was feeling more than okay. Held his own though for the most part tonight, where some of these defensive ends had solid evenings. So Spencer Brown did a good job though, and it's an encouraging. It's encouraging to see that from someone that you're going to be likely starting at right tackle. There's no real other competition for that spot on this team. As for Ed Oliver, I'm going to kind of second what you said. After he left the medical tent, he was on the sideline, helmet in hand, but smiling, talking to the guys, wasn't seated somewhere, wasn't taken off the field. I wouldn't overreact or worry too much about that just yet. Something that we will monitor and continue to monitor on Sunday.
Big news with Josh Allen today. Of course, he rocked the blue helmet coming out of the tunnel. Did you post a video of that?
No, because the Wi-Fi is a little. Well, actually, I think I did. I think it finally did go through. I tried to, and it wasn't working at first, and I tried a second time. It did. The Wi-Fi on the field is a little bit suspect here at Highmark Stadium.
That's not the only news that Josh Allen made today. Apparently, he made his way over to Wingnuts for the first time, and this has been years in the making. Because I remember when the Barstool guys. And thank you to John Bushy on YouTube. Loving the subtext. Thank you for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube right now, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. We really appreciate it. I know those Wingnuts guys, we've been working with them now for a little over half a year. Have been trying to get Josh Allen in the joint, and apparently that little interaction, the room 40, finally got him over there. He was there at Froth Brewing Company today before practice. So the next time we get a chance to talk to Josh Allen, we will have to ask him what he thought about Wingnuts. But here's the cool thing. Everybody watching, everybody interested can find out for themselves what the Wingnuts wings taste like. This Monday night, we are going to Dorado on Park Avenue in Rochester. Training camp last week. We are closing it down in big fashion out at Dorado for a live episode of Shout, and we're bringing Wingnuts with us.
Yeah, I cannot wait. And listen, Josh Allen, the fact that he was moving around well in the field after eating some Wingnuts wings, that's impressive in its own right. I'm usually in a food coma after about, 5 of those. So glad to see he finally made his way there. Room 40 definitely probably put it over the top, and doing the interview with the Pardon My Take folks probably pushed him to finally visiting, and hopefully he enjoyed it just like all the other Bills players have to date.
So I want to get into James Cook a little bit and this offensive line. And it was one of the things we were talking about in the press area over here with some of our peers was just this practice didn't really hit as much as, these blue and red scrimmages have in the past. I mean, a lot of it was run focused, heavily run focused. And, when you're working that kind of thing in this kind of setting, and it tends to be a little bit boring, but from a evaluation perspective, it did offer up some nice little nuggets. And I was disappointed that Ryan Bates was in at right guard with the starters. And I think that the Bills, I hope for Bills fans' sake and this player and this part of the build, is get aggressive with Osiris Torrance. in the preseason and really try to figure out what they have in him. And I know that they like to slow play it, not put up too much too soon on a rookie's plate. But I was disappointed to see Bates out there today. And the problem with Bates is that he's a good player. He's a fine player, right? But that's his ceiling. Right. I think like we've seen the best version of Ryan Bates in the NFL. And at times, I think his size and the fact that they lean on him to be an athletic offensive lineman, right? So he gets out in space really well. He reminds me of Mitch Morrison that way. He's really quick. He shuffles his feet really well. When they ask him to pull, he gets out in space really well. But sometimes you get going downhill and you meet up with a linebacker like you did today. Sure. And just get absolutely smashed. And I don't know if it was I think it was Dotson who just like completely blew up his block and then blew up the run play that they were trying to break free. And I think you get Torrance in that situation, it's probably a different result.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And, we were just talking about preseason with Tyrell Dotson, maybe not getting a lot of reps or a lot of snaps. And maybe that's going to happen at guard as well. And it could be a blessing in disguise for O'Cyrus Torrance getting a major run, major reps. And if he impresses the way that he's looked at camp at times and holds his own, it might force the Bills' hand. You mentioned they like to slow play these rookies, but we like what we've seen from him so far. He's a mauling guard. He's a little bit different than the stereotypical offensive guard that this team has had in the past. Like you said, they've leaned on athleticism over size, over that mauling factor. But if you really do want to get James Cook going, if you really do want to try to develop this player that you took in round 2, I think getting him on the field sooner rather than later would be the right call.
Make the right call right now. Head over to Tops, and they got all of these amazing drink specials, cold drinks, hot savings. You can get yourself a buy 2, get 3 free Pepsi 6-pack. You can go and get buy 2, get 3 free Diet Pepsi soda. Maybe you're watching your calories and you don't want to go too crazy. Go get the Diet Coke. They're the Diet Pepsi. They got the Pepsi Zero Sugar, buy 2, get 3 free. And then they got the $9.09 each on the caffeine-free soft drinks in bottles. There's so many deals happening at Tops right now. They're just a drive away. And listen, they're always open till like 11 or 12 at night. The one around the corner from my house, I'm always just crushing something at late night.
That's right. And listen, preseason football time now. Stock up on the Pepsi products, have them in-house, have some parties with these Bills games coming up, home game this upcoming weekend, but then 2 road contests. What's better than sitting at home, having some burgers from Tops and some Pepsi products?
Our good friend Mike Taylor, save the calories for Wingnuts, drink diet. My man. That's what I'm talking about. All right, where do we want to go next?
I want to talk about maybe my big winner of tonight's practice. That'd be AJ Epinesa, Matt. The Bills' defensive end room is loaded. We know what Von Miller brings to the table when he comes back. I think Leonard Floyd has had a really solid training camp season. He had a really nice night tonight. Greg Rousseau had a would-be sack on Josh Allen. But then it's like, what about the depth behind that trio? And AJ Epinesa had a great night tonight. He had 2 would-be sacks, both against David Quessenberry. Really worked Quessenberry in both takes. He had a batted pass early in practice. And I think maybe that light bulb came on last season that, flying under the radar, 6.5 sacks. And then you come to camp this season, and what's been the biggest knock on Epinesa? When the pads come on, he's not making the plays. Right. The pads have come on, and he's continuing to make plays this summer for the Bills. So for me, it was a great night for AJ Epinesa in terms of, solidifying that spot on the depth chart for this Bills team, maybe working his way into the rotation a little bit more, getting more opportunities, more snaps over the preseason. And then that could even carry over into the regular season, Matt.
I'm pretty concerned about the depth behind Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. I mean, you mentioned David Quessenberry there, and I want to talk about Epinesa too and these edge rushers. And there was one play against Spencer Brown, Leonard Floyd I want to talk about as well. I thought Spencer Brown, by the way, like a little bit of a segue here, or let's just pack this into this conversation. Spencer Brown was fine today. I mean, He came out, he played the whole practice. I thought he looked good in pass protection on a couple of different reps. The one that he really struggled in was a one-on-one rep against Leonard Floyd. And if you remember, I believe it was Sean McDermott, or maybe it was Eric Washington. Oh no, it was Eric Washington talking about his ability as a run defender. We saw it in person tonight, and he blew up a run play, beating Spencer Brown really badly, got into the backfield, which I think is really interesting. But, AJ Epinesa, I'm not taking anything away from him, but I just think that we are seeing just subpar ability at depth tackle for the Bills throughout this entire training camp. And that starts with Quessenberry. And I think, man, People were killing me for this a couple of months ago when I was weeks ago, really, if you want to think about it, talking about what's the deal with this Brandon Shell signing. Like, people are talking about all of his starting experience in Miami. Then you go look at some of the advanced numbers. I mean, people burned Spencer Brown for the pressures allowed last year. Shell was right there with him. He allowed 2 less according to Pro Football Focus. Right. I don't think he's very good. So if those 2 guys aren't good, aren't trustworthy, you don't feel good about putting them in the game behind Spencer Brown, who's already a polarizing kind of player, and a Deion Dawkins, who you're hoping bounces back from a little bit of a down year last year. The tackle position in general, to me, and we talked about this going into training camp, it's a major concern. And the play of Quessenberry and Shell, for me, hasn't quelled that concern at all.
No, and for Shell specifically, Matt, he was beaten badly by Boogie Basham in practice tonight. So that was another would-be sack for this team. And it's this was actually a subtext question that I answered earlier today. What do the Bills do about the depth at offensive tackle? At this point in the summer, there's not good options available in free agency. So they have 2 options. One, you could look and see, look across the landscape of the league and see who has some depth at tackle, maybe needs some help at defensive end. You're kind of loaded there. A player for player trade could be in talks, kind of how the Bills landed Ryan Bates a few years ago. I believe sending Eli Harold to Philadelphia in that trade. However it panned out. So that's one scenario. And then 2, the roster cut down season is going to be coming up here at the end of the month. And there will be some quality veterans that do not find a job on a 53-man roster. That might be the other path that they have to take. So, trading for a player or waiting for those roster cuts, which isn't ideal because then you're so close to the start of the regular season, getting them used to the system. It's just one of those things that the Bills are kind of in a tough spot right now, Matt.
A lot of people asking about Kyle Allen. And, one thing I could say, I don't know specifically the reason for the bad snaps, but I will say this is something that goes back to minicamp. I mean, we were talking about before. Remember when we were talking minicamp about Nick Broker and him? It's funny, we haven't seen him at center at all throughout training camp. And, Alec Anderson's working the converted tackle, I guess. I mean, he's still, I think, playing a little bit of that. He's been mostly doing the third team center stuff. Then they've been moving Bates into that spot, McGovern into that spot. They got Morse working with the first team. So, I mean, there's not a lot of continuity at center. And really, they're asking guys on the second team at center to play a position that's not their natural position. There's not a true backup center outside of Greg Mance. And listen, we've seen enough of Greg Mance at this point to know what that is. There's a reason why he remained on the practice squad last year. So, I think it's a combination of, just moving guys around, them not being comfortable. And that's another part of this Ryan Bates piece that's puzzling to me is like, I don't know if Ryan Bates is a good enough player to manage right guard and then flipping over to center. I feel like it's something that if you want him to be the backup center, which I think is a good idea with Mitch Morse's injury history and the fact that he's just another year older, I like that move with the depth that you now have at interior guard with Edwards and Butker. So I don't understand the hesitation. And listen, we're still early in the process. We're a week into training camp. Like, a lot of things can change as they go. And maybe they're seeing how much guys can handle on their plate, but it's something I'm going to be watching.
Yeah, and it could come down to too, like for priority practice squad players who can handle the center position, who can handle playing multiple spots in the line. But you're right, it's still early enough. But maybe at the end of the day, that is what the Bills decide and say, Ryan, we like your versatility, we like everything you can do, but we want you to kind of be that backup center. We think there could be a time.
That's something I say to you all the time, Ryan. I love your versatility.
To get you onto that field if something were to happen to Mitch Morse, because you said it, David Edwards has experience in this system, and he's looked solid so far at camp. And you have like Butker coming back from a serious injury, but he's kind of been eased back into it, and he looks like he could handle a depth role too. So you have those guys kind of waiting in the wings. You obviously have Torrance that you want out there hopefully starting, and you sign McGovern to a sizable deal. So you have the guys at guard. It's just kind of about figuring out that center position, because until we hear from Kyle Allen, or maybe we talk to one of the coaches about what the problem has been, we don't know exactly who is responsible, if it's a lack of chemistry in general. But there were definitely a lot of botched snaps and fumbles tonight.
Mark's asking on Facebook, was it really that horrible at tackle? And I'm mostly talking about Quessenberry and Shell. Like, I thought Brown and Dawkins were fine. But that's the point. Like, if you get in a situation where one of those guys has to play and you need to find a swing tackle, like maybe you're banking in this point, like that Tommy Doyle gets enough momentum here and puts some things together, and then you can have a different conversation. One of the plays of the day was the big long run from James Cook, and I will highlight Connor McGovern and Deion Dawkins, who basically made that thing possible. And once he got out to the outside, I mean, it's like, man, guys are in big trouble. I mean, Jordan Poyer's trying to track him down. I mean, that might be a house call if we're in a live game.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. When you have James Cook's speed and he gets that open lane and he's able to take it outside like he did tonight on that first run, it was a huge play. The crowd went wild for it. He showed off that burst, showed off the acceleration. He's proving that he's ready to kind of take on that running back one type of role based on the summer he's having to date, Matt.
Jessica asking a couple 53-man roster questions, and I actually kind of want to get into this a second because I was talking about this with Josh and Thad before our Channel 4 Buffalo Kickoff Live show today. And you go back to 2021, the Bills kept 11 defensive linemen. We've talked about that, right? I think, to me, Jordan Phillips seems like the most likely pup candidate because I just think, like, with the rotator cuff, the shoulder, you saw what happened when he really got dinged up last year. He's never right again. I think you want him to be absolutely 100 so you can really tap into his pass rushing ability and have that be a part. So I think you slow play his return, maybe even more than Vaughn, because it seems like Vaughn's really starting to kind of get himself ramped up to go. So if Vaughn's on the roster and you're sitting there looking at like Vaughn, Greg, Leonard Floyd, Boogie, AJ Epinesa, and Shaq, that's 6, right? If you start Phillips on pup, then you really have 5 other spots that you can use at defensive tackle, or maybe even go 7 defensive ends if you like one of those other ends, and 4 tackles, because, man, we're seeing a lot of Boogie and Greg on the inside too. So then you're looking at Settle, Poona Ford, Daquan Jones, and Ed Oliver.
Yeah, I think the way you just kind of laid that out is a really realistic situation for the D-line. Jordan Phillips, we haven't seen any kind of indication that he's necessarily like extremely close to returning. He's obviously working off to the side, much like Von Miller has been, much like Tyler Medikevich has been.
But do you just put him on? Sorry to interrupt you, but I want your thought on this. Do you just put him on ice anyway just to prepare against it?
Yes, I would, for a few reasons. 1, to prepare against it, and 2, because you like what you have there, and you know that over the first few weeks of the season, another injury could pop up, Matt. And at that point in time, then when he's healthy and ready to go, he could kind of come in, and you know what you're going to get from him.
I thought this was your best angle.
It was.
Today. Like, you just holding your hand, the John Cena, was great. We got some comments here. Well, somebody said, wow, that's the best Ryan's looked in months. That's just kidding. That was me. All right. Thank you for watching Shout on a late Friday night. We're over 400 on YouTube. You are the best, Bills Mafia. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the show as well. We're going to go a couple more places before we get out of here. But what I want you to do before you get out of here is send a text message. You could just say, hi, 716-528-6727. You're going to get text back on how to sign up to become a Shout Buffalo Bills insider. Then you get to join the club, and it's going to be great. Look in the background there. Look at this. Channel 7 in the house. Beauvais, the Dominator. That is a great cameo right there.
Man, oh, man. Yeah. The check's in the mail, Beauvais.
But become a text insider. We want to chat with you, answer your questions, and bring you what I think has been the coolest part of our coverage to date since we started doing this thing 5 years ago.
Yeah, love the back and forth. Love the talking with the Bills fans. Obviously, the broadcast where they get the messages and they respond back. We take a lot of enjoyment chatting one-on-one with the Bills fans who have been so supportive, and we really appreciate you. Join us now. Like, it's the great time of year to do it. Training camp, preseason, roster cut down time. Use that 2-week two-week free trial, Matt, and you won't regret it.
Where do you want to go next? I'm going to close this thing down here.
Let's close it down a little bit with back-to-back Josh Allen touchdowns tonight late in practice. So, yeah, Josh Allen, they were doing a little work near the goal line, and Allen had back-to-back passes, and the first being to Stephon Diggs. He saw Diggs kind of get open to the left side of the end zone and nailed, perfect pass to Diggs. But the second play is the one that I really liked, and it showed a little the creativity that we're getting from Ken Dorsey, and it looked like Khalil Shakir was going in motion to go toward the backfield, Matt. And when he did that, he reversed field immediately, kind of stopped, cut, and came back. And when he did that, he was opening the side of the field for a swing pass, hauled it in from Josh Allen, easy touchdown. But just that little motion, little kind of making these players think about, what's he going to do? Is he going into the backfield? Is he getting a handoff? Is he going to just kind of be a decoy, whatever it is? And then sure enough, he reverses field and gets open. It's just those little wrinkles that we're seeing from Ken Dorsey, the creativity that we're seeing at training camp. And we're seeing a lot of that on both sides of the ball, in my opinion, Matt. You mentioned, Boogie Basham and Greg Rousseau lining up at D tackle, the way that they're kind of creating these openings for players on the offense side of the ball. There's a lot of exciting things to kind of monitor if you're a Bills fan.
Get ready for the Trent Sherfield packages. I think that's something that I saw tonight. I saw him one point out in the slot. I saw another play where I think it was a run to Harris and Diggs was out of the game, and it was Sherfield and Gabe Davis in. And listen, another thing that's interesting on Dalton Kincaid, and a rep I want to get into from him before we get out of here. It's like everybody's talking about maybe like his inability to block early, like at a high level. I don't know if it's going to be that impactful because the Bills have this way to mitigate against it. Because if he's on the field, he almost becomes like wide receiver one in that situation when you have Knox, who's a solid blocker, and then Davis and Sherfield, who are two of the best blocking receivers in the NFL. Yeah. So all of a sudden now, and especially if you can get Osiris Torrance on the field, where I feel like that's going to be the strength of his game, then all of a sudden now you've upgraded in several spots. And really, when Kincaid's out there, you just have to look at him through that kind of scope.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Sherfield was the top blocking wide receiver in terms of blocking at Pro Football Focus last year. You mentioned Gabe Davis and how good of a blocker he is. You have Dawson Knox, who has made great strides as a blocker too. These are all things that work in the Bills' favor in terms of having Dalton Kincaid on the field, not having to necessarily worry about his blocking, but having him out there, he's only going to get better when the opportunities come, when the reps come. It's like Dawson Knox. Knox was not known for his blocking when the Bills drafted him. He was athletic. He tested well, and he's developed over the years. I guarantee Rob Boris and this coaching staff, they're going to develop Dalton Kincaid as a blocker too, but you want to let him be out there and utilize him for his skills and his talents, and that's as a pass catcher, and that's as a weapon in this game, in the passing game. So it's going to be interesting to see because, like you said, they do have other options in terms of blocking wide receivers.
Sneeze and yawn combo. I deliver that like nobody else. I want to talk about one rep about Kincaid. Wasn't a very busy practice for him today, but again, they were working a lot of the run game. But one would have been a sweet play from Josh Allen to Kincaid. It ends up going incomplete. I thought the ball was a little bit behind him, but I also think that Terrell Bernard in coverage made a really nice play. And I do want to highlight this because I was talking a bit at the beginning of the show about how maybe Bernard to me has felt just a level below Dotson. He has made a couple splash plays here and there. And, since the pads have come on, it's been less for Bernard, but that was one of those plays where he sprawled out. He was in the passing lane. I think he might've tipped it. I couldn't see it for sure, but for Kincaid not to catch it, I almost think that maybe he did. I should have asked Kincaid about it when we talked to him after practice. That's my bad. But a good play for Bernard either way, just to kind of be aware, affect the play a little bit, and it ends in an incompletion.
Yeah, that's just it. He affected the play, and at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for these players that are competing for not just a starting job, but also for a depth role or snaps in a game. And it would have been a great play to Dalton Kincaid, but like you said, there were a few factors. It was thrown behind him slightly. You had Bernard kind of sprawling out and possibly getting a hand on it. So if you can affect a play like that, you're stopping a team from potentially moving the chains. You're stopping them from a positive play. Little things like that do add up, and it was one of the better plays from Bernard tonight.
Little things do add up, and if you can get some savings, if you can get maybe a couple of things for free, that adds up quick. That wallet starts getting thick, right? And listen, the thick meats, no, that's horrible. Come on, Ryan, get your head. Come on, stop it. Buy one, get one free mega meat sale right now at Tops. You can get your 85% lean ground beef, your Oscar Mayer center cut original bacon, my personal favorite, some naturally hardwood smoked bacon. You got the boneless, skinless chicken breast. Come on, every time you go to Tops, you got to grab a couple packs of that. You can buy one, get one free with all of these brands right now at Tops. Get yourself some premium pork chops. Get yourself the center cut chops as well. How about that Hatfield pork tenderloin? I love a good tenderloin.
Don't we all, Matt? Don't we all? Yeah, go get those BOGO deals at Tops.
Love the BOGO deals. And speaking of deals, get yourself a 2-week free trial to become a Shout Buffalo Bills insider. After that, 2 weeks, try us out. $3.99 a month, less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks to be an insider per month, less than $50 a year. I know subscriptions add up, but man, ride with us for a little while, check it out, see if it's for you, and then we'll see how it goes. Scott Webster, death, taxes, and a smooth Parrino Tops promo transition. I've been waiting for Tops to come back. It's my favorite time of the year when I get those transitions.
Yeah, and you do. You always nail them, Matt. So great time tonight. Can't wait for Sunday's practice.
I cannot wait for Sunday's practice either. 11:45 it begins. Expect Shout to be live around 4 p.m., a little bit later than usual, but it's a little bit later in the day. He's Ryan Talbot. I'm Matt Parrino from Highmark Stadium. We will see you all on Sunday. Enjoy your weekend. Summer's winding down. Have some fun. We'll see you then. Bye-bye, everybody.